The story begins with a man nervously boarding a train. Upon disembarking, he runs away in panic but is intercepted by a group of people who somehow know his secret. The group envelops the area in smoke, and the man displays extraordinary combat skills as he fights off several attackers. The assailants throw knives at him, prompting him to draw his own sword to defend himself. The attackers then use metal needles called sanban, but the man exhibits incredible reflexes, catching one with his teeth and hurling it back at them. Unfortunately, he is overwhelmed by their sheer numbers. He is captured when a device ensnares his neck, and he is dragged away by a menacing-looking man. This villain slams him to the ground and finishes him off with his sword. The attackers use a tool to confirm their target has been eliminated before departing. Elsewhere, a farmer named Higan finds great joy in his life on the farm. After a fulfilling day, he returns home to repair his motorcycle. As he works, his young son, Kyle, decides to play and sneaks up on him. With a mischievous grin, Higan turns to Kyle and jokingly claims to have eyes on the back of his head. His wife, Sarah, is startled to see his face covered in dirt. Kyle explains that his mask resembles one worn by an Oni, known as troublemakers. Higan warns him that the Oni might mistake him for one of them, but Kyle confidently believes his brave and strong father would protect him if they ever came after him. Higan jokingly admits he isn't entirely sure he could defeat such fictional creatures, but Sarah confidently declares she would face them for Kyle's sake. Higan teases that he'd better finish repairing his motorcycle soon, as Sarah might struggle against the Oni. Later, a news report reveals the tragic death of the man encountered earlier, making Sarah worry it might be the work of the Oni. Kyle is convinced it was them, but it's time for bed. He bids his mother goodnight, and Higan reminds him of his upcoming birthday. With Kyle asleep, Higan carefully monitors the security cameras installed around their home. Sarah expresses her concerns about the man's mysterious elimination and the lack of information about his identity. Higan reassures her there's nothing to worry about, confident they won't be found in their remote location. Sarah's main worry revolves around someone known as the Reaper, but Higan explains that it's unlikely to be him since he always operates alone. The next day, we see Higan's cautious nature as he meticulously wipes their fingerprints from the doorknob, ensuring their identities remain hidden. The young family continues to live a peaceful, normal life, with Higan striving to be a loving father who brings joy to his son. However, one night, the news reports another death at the hands of a mysterious organization. This incident marks one of several recent events, prompting a large-scale investigation to uncover the truth behind them. On Kyle's birthday, the loving family gathers for a cheerful dinner, sharing jokes and singing as Kyle blows out the candles on his favorite birthday cake. As Kyle opens his gifts, he finds a video game, and Higan surprises him with a new helmet to replace the frightening Oni mask. Kyle excitedly declares he's no longer a scary mask wearer but a hero thanks to his new helmet. Sarah remarks that she just enjoys seeing his normal face, and the whole family shares a warm, loving hug. They couldn't be happier, openly expressing their love for one another. That night, Higan wakes up but calmly asks his wife to stay put. He quietly walks downstairs, where everything seems fine. Suddenly, something appears at the window, and Higan is ambushed. The attackers force their way inside. Higan skillfully fights off several of them. His extraordinary abilities allow him to seize one of their weapons, and he uses his sword to eliminate some of the assailants. As he defeats one opponent, Higan hears his son's cries, spurring him into immediate action. He shoves aside an attacker blocking his path and fully incapacitates them. Higan rushes to find his family, grabbing something, but another attacker fires 2 metal needles straight into his neck. Despite the injury, Higan remains determined and refuses to stop. He summons every ounce of strength to crawl up the stairs, even as the pain becomes unbearable. Upon reaching the 2nd floor, he is met with a horrifying sight. Several attackers lie defeated, but his heart shatters as he sees the lifeless bodies of his family, Kyle and Sarah, on the floor. Shock courses through Higan, and a sinister figure outside reveals that his wife fought bravely before meeting her tragic end. This revelation ignites a burning rage in Higan, but before he can react, he is stabbed from behind. Though wounded, he desperately drags himself toward the attacker, determined to reach his family. However, the damage to his body proves too severe. Suddenly, the attackers realize authorities must have been alerted, as police sirens sound in the distance. Their leader confirms Higan is no longer alive, so they leave just before the police arrive. Officers arrive at the scene and are horrified to find the slaughtered family. Some time later, Higan seemingly regained consciousness. His first thought was of his deceased family, and he vomited as overwhelming emotions consumed him. When Higan fully came to, he found himself in a hospital, and the nurse immediately called for a doctor. Higan only managed to utter his wife's name before passing out again. Eventually, Higan awoke, and the doctor explained that he had miraculously returned to life after being declared dead by the coroner. Higan didn't care and only wanted to know about his wife and son. Unfortunately, he was told they hadn't survived. At that moment, two individuals, Mike and Emma, arrived to visit him. They were from the FBI and asked for his assistance in their investigation. They proceeded to ask him several questions about the possible identity of the attackers. Higan remained silent, but his growing fury was evident to Mike. Sensing this wasn't the right time for questioning, Mike discreetly handed Higan his business card and decided to leave. Later, Mike confided in Emma his intuition that Higan might know something about the attackers. They agreed to take turns watching Higan, and Emma volunteered to go first. As Emma observed Higan from the rooftop, he was consumed by recent memories of parting with his family. The nurse discovered that Higan had intentionally locked the wheelchair, preventing any movement. Overcome by grief and rage, Higan couldn't bear to approach the bodies of his loved ones. Now on the rooftop, memories of his wife and son flooded his mind, fueling his anger. Higan's rage intensified, and he grabbed his wrist, revealing a metal needle. He stabbed himself with the mysterious object, triggering a strange transformation in his body. Suddenly, a group of assassins launched an attack on Higan. Driven by fury, Higan unleashed his inner rage and skillfully defeated several assassins, displaying astonishing strength and precision. Higan dominated the fight, but that wasn't all. He performed a unique jet technique, turning his body into dense black smoke. His powerful movements allowed him to swiftly eliminate more assassins in an instant. Emma, confused by the chaos, sought answers from Higan, but he instead knocked her unconscious. With his anger still burning, Higan relentlessly continued his assault, tearing through numerous attackers despite being vastly outnumbered. Strategically, Higan threw a sword toward the elevator, revealing his clever plan. Using a pole as leverage, he forcefully shoved the remaining assassins into the elevator. It was clear that the assassins were now trapped inside with Higan, not the other way around. Lifeless bodies littered the scene as he ascended to another level, instilling fear in the remaining enemies. Meanwhile, Mike grew increasingly worried when Emma failed to answer his calls, only to be shocked by the discovery of several corpses nearby. He accidentally encountered the leader of the assassins. Memories flooded Higan's mind, igniting his fury as he launched an attack on the leader. However, this leader proved different from the others, skillfully defending himself and even trapping Higan with a device around his neck. Quickly freeing himself, Higan and the leader engaged in a fierce, evenly matched battle, until Higan used his shadow technique again, delivering a devastating blow. Seizing the opportunity, Higan pressed his attack without mercy, finally ending the fight. Demanding answers, Higan asked how they had found him and his family and how they knew his true identity. Mockingly, the leader remarked that Higan might change his appearance, but he could never escape his fate. Higan then shocked the man and revealed his disguise. Higan remained silent and proceeded to end the leader's life. Afterward, Higan visited his family, but the sight was too painful to bear. Overcome with emotion, he collapsed to his knees. Eventually, Higan returned home and drilled a hole in the wall. Inside, he retrieved a hidden box containing various items, including a mask. As Higan stared at a photo, memories of his family flooded his mind once more. Just before Higan set his family home ablaze, we caught one last glimpse. He watched as the life that was once full of love and peace burned away, and he donned the mask. The flames consumed every last remnant of his past, yet Higan's rage remained unquenched. Higan was haunted by memories of his family's tragic deaths, but this time, in his nightmare, his wife called him by his real name, Higan. His family no longer wore disguises, and his son screamed for him. Suddenly, Higan awoke from the horrific nightmare only to find himself restrained. The assassin leader, though in terrible condition, had knocked Higan unconscious in surprise. Someone had arrived, a doctor who was equally shocked, believing they would only meet in the afterlife. The doctor asked why Higan wasn't wearing his disguise, and Higan revealed that the organization had found a way to see through their disguise system. The doctor was puzzled by Higan's injuries but then noticed his arm. Higan had used the secret art of stark consciousness, explaining his actions on the rooftop. The doctor warned Higan never to use it again, as it could kill him next time. Glancing at Higan's back, he suggested abandoning the idea of a next time, given that Higan should have died from being stabbed. Higan was confused as to how he had survived, and the doctor wondered if a guardian angel was watching over him. It took a full 6 days for Higan to fully recover, but all he wanted was to regain enough strength to extract information from the captive. The doctor asked about Higan's next plans, and Higan simply replied that he would hunt down those responsible for his family's murder. The doctor gave Higan something to aid his recovery, though it caused excruciating pain, and he lost consciousness. Once Higan regained his strength, he confronted the assassin leader without a word, immediately resorting to violence by stabbing him with a sword. Despite being stabbed repeatedly, the man firmly declared that ninjas never surrender. Higan shocked him by revealing he already knew this and continued his assault. Higan pursued him relentlessly, undeterred by the passing days. The assassin leader finally broke the silence, questioning Higan's motives and begging for his suffering to end. Yet Higan remained indifferent to his pleas. Though days passed, Higan showed no signs of stopping, inflicting more pain on the assassin. One day, Higan escalated by dousing him in gasoline. Driven to madness, the assassin mocked Higan about his wife's reaction, revealing that Higan's son had been terrified, but his wife's eyes had burned with hatred until the end. The assassin's words only fueled Higan's resolve as he was told that his wife had wept with every stab of his sword. Higan calmly ordered him to pay close attention as he described how he planned to carve the image of his family's suffering into his mind forever. He detailed the horrific pain he intended to inflict, emphasizing that death would never bring peace, he would always live in fear of the Oni lurking in the shadows. Higan then set the man ablaze, watching as he screamed in agony. Meanwhile, Mike was removed from the investigation involving Higan on orders from his disturbed superior. With no cameras on the rooftop and unidentified blood, Mike mentioned that Emma had witnessed everything. However, his boss suggested speaking with her again, suspecting changes in her story. Frustrated with the situation, Emma found humor in her superior's attempts to hide the truth. She sensed something suspicious and decided to play along while secretly investigating Higan and his family. Her findings revealed they had all used fake identities. Elsewhere, Higan reflected on the device that concealed his true appearance, recalling the promise that it would keep everyone safe. He then set off on his motorcycle to begin his search, only to find the first location empty. Higan traveled long distances to check other locations, but each time, he was met with disappointment. Even the last place he checked was deserted, deepening his frustration. That night, several corrupt police officers entered a bar and grew angry when the bartender didn't provide enough money. Higan happened to be sitting there, and one officer asked if the motorcycle outside was stolen. Higan ignored him, prompting the officer to demand his license. Again, Higan ignored him, leading the officer to attempt an arrest. However, Higan swiftly subdued him. Calmly, Higan left the scene, but another officer tried to attack him from behind. Higan easily dodged the strike, but the force of his counter sent the officer flying. Higan glanced at their police car and remembered the business card Mike had given him. The next day, Mike thought Emma was joking, but she insisted she was investigating crimes. With much criminal activity now happening in virtual reality, she needed to wrap up this case so they could focus on Higan. Emma then mentioned that VR technology had advanced rapidly recently, thanks to the company Auza. Suddenly, Mike was stunned when Higan contacted him. He gently pulled Emma out of VR and signaled for her to trace the call. Mike tried to uncover Higan's true identity, but Higan had his own questions. Higan expressed his desire to talk, prompting Mike to point out they were already speaking. This only frustrated Higan, who crushed his phone in anger. Higan called Mike again, offering another chance but warning him to stop playing games. Higan allowed Mike to choose the meeting place, so Mike picked a nearby restaurant. The call ended, leaving Emma disappointed at failing to trace Higan. On the way to the restaurant, Auza advertisements were everywhere, claiming their technology protected everyone and was essential to every aspect of life. Higan approached the restaurant and quietly observed the area while waiting for Mike. Once inside, Mike ordered the owner to leave, though reluctantly, and instructed him to direct delivery drivers to a table near the entrance where food orders would be placed. Finally, Higan appeared, but instead of showing his face, he displayed the business card Mike had given him earlier. Unsatisfied, Mike insisted on seeing Higan's face for confirmation. Frustrated, Higan considered leaving, but Mike agreed to talk. Higan's main goal was uncovering those responsible for the recent string of murders, and in return, he promised to answer any of Mike's questions. Relieved by Higan's willingness to cooperate, Mike suddenly drew his gun, stating he didn't negotiate with suspects and ordered Higan to kneel. At that moment, a delivery person entered and took one of the orders. Mike wondered why Higan didn't use the distraction to escape, but Higan insisted on continuing the conversation. Suddenly, another delivery person arrived and took another order. Cautiously, Mike warned Higan not to make sudden moves as he carefully circled the table. He firmly declared Higan under arrest. Strangely, Higan remained still, but Mike's frustration grew when a third delivery person abruptly entered. Mike was confused, realizing there were no more orders to take, until this new delivery person attacked. Higan quickly defended against the assault, but in the process, his face was revealed, leaving Mike curious about his true identity. As Higan fought, it became clear this assassin was no ordinary delivery person. Mike tried to apprehend both, but he was forced to shoot when the fake delivery person attacked him. Higan stepped in to save Mike, and the fight escalated when the attacker revealed a pair of extra arms. Higan was pushed back, but he used his shadow technique to summon 4 arms and 2 heads. The battle raged fiercely, with Higan gaining the upper hand thanks to his additional limbs. However, as he prepared to finish his opponent, he realized the extra arms belonged to someone else hidden in a bag. Now facing 2 deadly foes, Higan held his ground. After saving Mike again, Higan threw alcohol at the assassins and ignited his sword. The fight grew even more intense, but Higan took a swig of alcohol and spat a fireball at his enemies. Seizing the moment, he launched all his swords, pinning one assassin and defeating the other. With the battle finally over, a stunned Mike asked about Higan's identity. Higan mysteriously replied, "Peking duck," leaving Mike bewildered. It was just an item on the restaurant menu. Curious about the man from the hospital, Higan decided to use his device to reveal his disguise. To their shock, they discovered Higan himself was a ninja, just like the fake delivery person and the hospital staff. Suddenly, they were forced to take cover as a group of attackers opened fire from outside. The situation worsened when one attacker fired a rocket at them, causing the entire place to explode. Before escaping, Higan vanished, but we saw him watching Mike from above. Mike checked his chest and noticed the ninja sword had effortlessly sliced through his bulletproof vest without a scratch. Confused, Mike wondered who could create such powerful weapons. As they pondered, an Auza technology advertisement played behind them, catching their attention. Meanwhile, a man named Zai informs his master that their target is still alive, which disappoints the master when he mentions Higan's name. In an art museum across the country, we witness an exhibition painted red with blood as several murders occur simultaneously that night. A man is being swiftly escorted out by his guards, ensuring his safety by taking him as far away as possible to escape the impending danger. It seems he might have evaded disaster, but as the man sits in the back seat of the car, he prays fervently to God for protection from the demon pursuing him. Moments later, a wrinkled white hand emerges from behind the car seat, snapping the guards' necks before forcibly ending the man's life. The car loses control, crashes into a tree, and explodes into flames, claiming the lives of everyone inside. The mastermind behind this assassination plot, a bald man, eagerly awaits his next target, Higan. Later, he enjoys a lavish dinner with his boss, revealing that he isn't actually bald. His haircut is just so terrible that it gives the illusion of baldness. He tells his client that the previous job was extremely dull because he couldn't even feel the thrill of watching the bodies turn to ash. He yearns for something more exhilarating, so he asks about others' mundane tasks in hopes of finding enjoyment. However, Yamaji ignores his rambling and emphasizes that his job isn't for entertainment, he must eliminate anyone he's ordered to kill. Realizing he started on the wrong foot, the small bald man changes the subject and questions Yamaji about the need to invest resources in pursuing rogue ninjas. Yamaji insists it's crucial because these defectors are no longer considered ninjas and must be eradicated to prevent their secret arts from being leaked to the public. The small bald man reluctantly acknowledges that Higan, a highly skilled ninja and an intriguing target, has caught his attention. Higan is renowned for his mastery of various martial arts and his ruthless approach to eliminating targets. The small bald man is honored with the task of personally killing Higan. Yamaji informs him that they previously succeeded in killing Higan, but he somehow resurrected himself using a secret ninja art. This ancient technique is known only to veteran ninjas, which excites the small bald man even more. The organization is determined to ensure Higan is truly eliminated this time, and preparations are underway. However, the small bald man believes it would be far more satisfying if he could handle the assassination himself, as he's eager for a chance to face Higan. As he's about to leave in his palanquin, he suddenly remembers something and asks about another ninja known as the Reaper. We catch a glimpse of the Reaper, who has just defeated a group of ninjas and now faces his former teacher. The teacher calls out Zai, criticizing his senseless violence and asserting that what he's doing is nothing but purposeless slaughter. Zai has been eliminating rogue ninjas on behalf of the organization, which was once his ally. However, the organization is deeply corrupt, which is why they're so desperate to silence the defectors out of fear. The former teacher prepares his sword for the coming battle, declaring that ninjas like him, who stand firm on their principles and defect, will not be defeated by their enemies. The fact that they failed to kill Higan is proof of this. Tension rises as the two stare each other down, eagerly awaiting the first move. Breaking the stalemate, the teacher releases a devastating gust of wind, seemingly impossible to evade. Yet, to everyone's shock, Zai remains unharmed, emerging from the dust with his usual relaxed demeanor. The teacher is bewildered, unable to comprehend how Zai avoided the attack. Still, he remains undeterred, ready to launch another strike. However, As he prepares to attack, he notices something strange. Zai is no longer holding his sword. The blade has mysteriously embedded itself in the teacher's body, shattering his mask. Though defeated, the teacher, Kagari, can't contain his rage at being outmatched before he even realized it. Resigned, he mutters, "I guess I'm done," as he collapses to the ground, envisioning the day Zai will join him in the depths of hell. Shifting to a meeting with Yamaji, he reflects that the Reaper must intend to face someone as strong as Higan. While this may be true, Yamaji has issued strict orders forbidding any encounter with Higan, leaving no room for a duel. Meanwhile, at the police station, we witness the unfortunate situation involving Mike and the Chinese restaurant owner after the chaos that erupted during their meeting. The police department exploits the situation, falsely accusing the restaurant owner of involvement in a Chinese money laundering scheme. Though aware the accusations are baseless, Mike finds himself in a difficult position where he must comply with upper management's orders to protect his job. Sadly, there seems to be no way out for Mike, and soon his boss confronts him about it. They decide to take a break from the office and head to a quiet lake in a nearby park. There, his boss advises Mike to stay out of this mess. Digging deeper will only bring trouble, and with retirement just a few years away, Mike should keep a low profile and enjoy his days fishing and sipping whiskey. Mike's boss is so generous that he even plans to surprise him with a high-end fishing rod. However, Mike is less than thrilled, suspecting it might be an Auza product, and he's determined to uncover the truth. In an effort to stop Mike from meddling in affairs he shouldn't, his boss employs an unusual tactic. He tells Mike he doesn't need to come to the office anymore, implying he's too worn out to make sound judgments. Still, Mike isn't fired, he's simply placed on unpaid leave until his retirement. It's the best advice his former colleague can offer. Elsewhere, Higan is seen in an abandoned building, forging and hammering metal while lost in thought. Memories of his deceased family flood his mind, causing him to vomit in a corner. After the panic attack subsides, he regains his composure and notices someone approaching. A car pulls up, and Mike steps out carrying a box of supplies. He grumbles about the remote location being hard to find with GPS, but Higan appreciates the solitude. The two enter the building and discuss the unique alloy used in the attacker's blade from the restaurant. After analysis, they realize the alloy is produced by Auza, suggesting a link between the attacker and the ninjas. Mike mentions he'll do some digging to see if any information is available, but Auza is dangerously powerful. They seem to control the entire FBI. Now, they're trying to silence him. Higan tells Mike they're the ones responsible for his family's deaths, so he intends to take revenge on every last one of them. This implies Higan plans to slaughter them all. However, Mike explains that he's still committed to justice, and if necessary, they'll have to arrest Higan for his actions. Still, there are many corrupt individuals in the FBI who need to be dealt with first. Mike proposes a truce where they help each other achieve their goals, though he never imagined he'd collaborate with someone as controversial as an actual ninja. Higan hands him a cup and pours a drink from his thermos to seal their alliance. As Mike takes a sip, he realizes it's not alcohol, raising concerns about poison. Higan assures him it's just an energy drink. Moving forward, Mike mentions he's obtained a lead on Auza, catching Higan's attention. He says someone knowledgeable is on their way here. The door creaks open, making them think it's their contact, but it turns out to be just the duck they'll have for dinner. Emma finally arrives, but Mike is annoyed she's late, as she was supposed to meet them at noon. Emma explains she had to wait for a chance to leave work and then pick up her baby before coming here. Mike doesn't see much issue with her car, but Emma takes offense, pointing out that the car Mike drives is a junker. Mike admits it but defends that it gets him places on time. Higan admires Emma's car, recognizing it as one of the finest designed by a famous 20th century designer. Emma is delighted someone else appreciates her car. As expected of a ninja, Higan is wary that Emma knows too much, but Mike reassures him that Emma is a trusted friend who also analyzes weapons for them, so she needs to be here. Emma has always had a deep fascination with ninjas, so she bombards Higan with questions. Mike interrupts, suggesting they stay on topic since their goal is to discuss Auza. Undeterred, Emma insists they all get in the car because she has something important to show them. Despite the cramped space, they squeeze into the back seat. Emma asks them to bear with the lack of room for a moment as she reveals why she's so obsessed with this car. Turns out, she's modified it into a mobile computer, giving her access to vast amounts of information worldwide. Emma has extensively researched Auza and uncovered their involvement in military weapons, telecommunications, and entertainment. They aim to cover nearly every conceivable technology, and it's safe to say almost everyone in the world uses something they've created. However, as a trillion-dollar multinational, Auza isn't without dark rumors. Strangely, every individual who poses a threat to Auza's reputation, whether rival CEOs or journalists, has met their end in mysterious accidents. In recent news, the leader of the Conservative Party in his country, who vehemently opposed foreign companies doing business there, had his laws overturned after dying in a car crash. His replacement, clearly not an Auza plant, now advocates for domestic tech improvements in partnership with Auza. It seems all these convenient deaths raise suspicions, and Emma is convinced ninjas are behind them. Mike worries about the potential danger of taking on a corporate giant and its army of ninjas. Meanwhile, at an Auza research facility, they've just begun testing a new generator they've developed, with their wireless power system nearing perfection. Auza is on track to become a household name in technology, aiming to monopolize every tech industry. The company president returns to his office after meeting with researchers, only to be confronted by Yamaji with a complaint. Yamaji believes Auza agents targeted a drive-by attack to test a new weapon, but he doesn't appreciate interference in his affairs, even if they're partners. Higan and the team investigate Auza's metaphorical heart to unravel the mystery of the ninjas' involvement. Their headquarters in Auza City is where they test experimental inventions. As they sift through information, Higan suddenly shoves Mike aside as a sword pierces through the car roof. Emma starts driving to escape the attacker, but he keeps stabbing the roof. Mike tries shooting him, but it does little to stop him. Higan takes over and stabs the man. They think they're safe until a truck rams them, sending the car flying off the road. Higan is the first to regain consciousness, while the other two remain unconscious from the impact. The battle is far from over as the attacker stands before them, firing nails. Higan quickly pulls Mike to safety and leaps out of the car to confront the masked assailant. A fierce battle ensues as they race through city streets. Eventually, they end up on a rooftop, where the attacker reveals robotic tentacles. Though struck midair, Higan uses his ninjutsu to create an extra arm, grabbing the tentacle and throwing the attacker. However, the attacker has more tricks, launching missiles at Higan. Yet, Higan skillfully dodges each midair strike and seizes the chance to swiftly stab the killer in the head. He then drags the lifeless body to the roof's edge before retrieving a camera from it. The small bald man observes the entire sequence, prompting Higan to firmly declare that he's coming for him next. As the small bald man finishes his meal, Higan prepares to leave while paramedics tend to Mike and Emma. However, just as he's about to go, his disposable phone rings, and upon hearing the voice on the other end, Higan seems to recognize it. The voice informed him that it had taken steps to encrypt the call, ensuring there was no need to worry about being traced. Curious, Higan asked about the voice's identity, but it seemed getting an answer wouldn't be easy. The voice then revealed that it knew about Higan's objective in Auza City and warned him about the formidable, multi-layered security system. It was nearly impossible for Higan to infiltrate the city alone, so the voice offered to assist him. Cautious by nature, Higan hesitated to trust a voice he had only encountered over the phone. However, the voice disclosed that it, too, was a rogue ninja facing a situation similar to Higan's, making their interests mutually beneficial for collaboration. The voice proposed sending a location for a future meeting, leaving the decision to trust in Higan's hands. Mike woke up in a hospital room after a car accident and opened a note he had received from his daughter some time ago. Years earlier, he had been on an undercover mission with a fellow agent when his wife repeatedly called him. Though he could have easily answered, he believed his duty took priority and ordered his partner to stay focused on the investigation despite uncertainties surrounding eyewitness reports. The day ended, and unfortunately, he found nothing. Upon returning to the office, he finally decided to answer his wife's call. Unbeknownst to him, what he would hear would change his life forever. Tragically, his daughter had been involved in a car accident caused by someone who had fallen asleep at the wheel. The report was devastating. His wife was inconsolable and justifiably furious that he hadn't answered her calls during such a critical moment. That day, he lost both his daughter and his wife, leaving only the comfort of a drawing his daughter had made while she was still alive. Lost in thought, Higan suddenly appeared from the shadows, startling him. Mike could never get used to how ninjas seemed to materialize out of nowhere, but he knew Higan had something important to share. They decided to call Emma, as Higan mentioned a man who claimed he could offer assistance with the Auza mission. Mike wasn't entirely convinced this man was another ninja like Higan, but he did possess information only known to ninjas from the old organization, secrets that had been kept since they arrived in the country. Emma's findings suggested the man was highly knowledgeable about Auza's security systems, which were incredibly robust. It was nearly impossible to bypass them undetected, so if this turned out to be a trap, Higan might have no choice but to eliminate all threats. Mike was unsettled by Higan's blunt admission but decided to set it aside for now. The main focus was figuring out how to infiltrate Auza City. Mike knew Auza was monitoring him based on his last conversation with his boss. Emma suggested they give up, as it might be the safest option. She had previously mentioned that infiltrating Auza's headquarters was the best way to uncover their secrets but never claimed it was possible. Mike pleaded with her to reconsider, but Emma wasn't a miracle worker, just a tech-savvy girl. Unfortunately, there was nothing more she could do. However, they still had some leads. Emma had discovered a group of dark web users monitoring Auza's activities. According to their findings, Auza planned to dominate the world by creating weapons of mass destruction. At first, Mike dismissed it as mere conspiracy theory, but he realized it was better to be safe than sorry. Emma located the admin of the dark web group, who claimed to be a former Auza researcher. However, he was quite far away, so reaching him would take time. Mike assured her that distance wouldn't be an issue and insisted on going alone. He appreciated Emma's help but didn't want her risking her life. Having already lost everything he loved, Mike felt he had nothing left to lose. Emma, however, was determined not to give up, especially when they were so close to uncovering Auza's secrets. If she played her cards right, she might even steal some of their advanced data and profit from the black market. With everyone in agreement, they decided to stick together. Higan stood to leave, but not before Mike jokingly asked if he had ever revealed his ninja identity to his wife. Higan laughed, explaining that his wife was also a ninja, breaking the tradition of emotional detachment among their kind. This revelation made Mike rethink his priorities, realizing that even a skilled ninja like Higan valued family over duty. The head of Auza was now determined to take down Higan, recognizing him as a formidable adversary. A bald, diminutive man teased him for his obsession with Higan, but he didn't care about mockery as long as he obtained the crucial data he sought. In fact, he would have his assistant, Dilly, provide whatever support was necessary, regardless of risk. Setting jokes aside, the Auza director inquired about plans for Higan's arrival but was assured that Auza City was completely impenetrable, no need to worry. He disliked when people used phrases like, 100% secure, because it practically invited someone to breach it. Before proceeding, he checked with Big D to confirm he was paying attention. Big D had clearly been listening but had more pressing matters, like ensuring his hairstyle stayed fresh. If Higan ruined his new look, he'd make sure Higan regretted it. The bald man attempted a joke about Big D's Big Banana, but Yamaji had had enough of his nonsense and silenced him with a sharp gesture. Yamaji reiterated how dangerous Higan was, so the plan remained unchanged. They needed to analyze Higan's techniques to defeat him. For now, they could leave Mike alone, as he posed no significant threat. There was no need to complicate things further. The Auza head's dislike for being ordered around was well known, but surprisingly, he agreed with Yamaji's assessment. With that, the meeting concluded. On his way back, the Auza head turned to his assistant, Dilly, and curiously asked how far he thought Higan would get before meeting his demise. Not because he felt threatened, he was genuinely excited to witness a ninja in full action. He hoped to gather valuable data from the encounter. Meanwhile, Reaper informed Yamaji that he was ready to pursue Higan immediately if ordered. However, Yamaji advised waiting, as he intended to send others first to force Higan to reveal his techniques. The organization considered their deaths insignificant. It was only a matter of time before they achieved their main objective. Elsewhere, Yamaji's operatives successfully infiltrated a building, eliminating all guards and securing classified government documents before vanishing into the night. A flashback revealed the night Higan was formally recognized by the ninja organization and given his ninja name, a symbol of his extraordinary skill and strength. From that moment, they were known as Higan, Zai, and Mari. However, there was more to it. During their initiation ceremony, they were introduced to a secret technique that even they were forbidden to discuss among themselves. After the ceremony, they gathered for the night. Mari seemed overjoyed to have a name, but Zai struggled to adjust to this new reality. Having a name meant they were no longer disposable ninjas who vanished upon death. Now, they could always remember each other and the strong bonds they had formed. To mark the occasion, the three shared drinks and laughter. Though Higan accidentally choked on his. Time passed, and they were assigned a mission to infiltrate the home of an influential figure. After dispatching random security guards, the man attempted to shoot them, but firearms were practically useless against them. In the end, he was stabbed through the head. As they entered the bedroom, Mari noticed something in the closet and went to investigate, only to find the man's wife and child hiding inside. Mari faced a difficult decision. Standard procedure demanded all witnesses be eliminated immediately. Yet, she found herself questioning whether she could harm an innocent child. In that moment of hesitation, the woman seized the opportunity and fired a barrage of bullets at Mari, severely wounding her. Mari fought back, forced to slit the woman's throat. Higan arrived just as additional guards began firing at them. With a swift motion, he threw a smoke grenade and leapt out the window with Mari in his arms. Later, he emerged from the water with Mari, who had been unconscious for some time. Higan immediately performed CPR until she revived. Taking shelter in a nearby cave, Mari insisted Higan leave her behind for the sake of the mission. But Higan refused firmly, unwilling to abandon her. Overwhelmed with shame for failing the mission, Mari considered ending her life with her weapon. Fortunately, Higan noticed just in time and intercepted the blade inches from her neck. Despite the ninja code's warning against emotional attachments, Mari reminded him of their duty. But Higan had already decided to break that code the day they met. After sharing a kiss, Zai found them embracing in the corner of the cave. This marked the beginning of their troubles with the organization. Back in the present, Mike tried contacting Higan as he headed to meet the dark web source. Simultaneously, his boss called, expressing dissatisfaction with Mike's recent activities. Still, Mike was given the freedom to pursue his own interests since he currently had no assigned cases. Emma's situation was different. She still had to report to her direct supervisor, meaning she could no longer accompany him. This was understandable, as Mike hadn't wanted to involve her in the first place. But before parting ways, Emma kindly asked if Mike happened to be hungry. Meanwhile, Higan received a message from the mysterious rogue ninja, expressing satisfaction with his decision to accept help. Initially, the voice wanted Higan to fully understand Auza's security system. The system relied entirely on proprietary technology, proactively scanning approaching vehicles for authorization. If an unauthorized visitor was detected via scans, drones would swiftly take defensive action. Additionally, an electromagnetic barrier covered the city's airspace, allowing only rain to pass through. To enter Auza city, Higan would have to infiltrate through an underground facility managing all the sensors embedded throughout the city. The area was heavily guarded with security cameras, laser traps, and armed mercenaries patrolling every section to ensure smooth operations. Avoiding combat was crucial. If Higan succeeded in bypassing them, he would reach the city's barrier. The mysterious voice would then work its magic, disabling the barrier for 5 seconds, just enough time for Higan to slip inside. Over dinner, Emma and Mike enjoyed a meal together. Emma expressed her gratitude to Mike for teaching her so much, though she felt he might not have been the best mentor. She asked him to take care of himself while they worked separately for the time being. Meanwhile, Higan arrived at Auza city's outskirts and was informed that the voice had hacked the internal security cameras. They estimated they had about 8 minutes before detection. Higan began moving through the underground facility, following instructions to avoid mercenaries. He encountered the laser security system and skillfully performed precise acrobatics to evade triggering alarms. However, a drop of sweat from his forehead accidentally activated a laser, completely sabotaging the plan. Now aware of his presence, they quickly dispatched soldiers to capture him. Higan efficiently dealt with them and continued running until he reached the barrier. Just as it was about to be disabled, Zai suddenly appeared before him, and the two locked eyes in tense silence. Higan stated that Mari was already dead and wondered if Yamaji had ordered her assassination, so he could take revenge on those responsible. Zai didn't answer directly but warned Higan that he couldn't hide forever. Eventually, he would face the consequences for opposing the organization. Mike arrived at the address of the former Auza researcher he was looking for, but the place seemed too run down to house someone who had worked for a powerful company like Auza. Although employed there, Emma told Mike that this researcher wasn't highly regarded and hadn't made significant contributions to their progress. However, if he had gone to the trouble of hiding in this dilapidated place, he must have useful information. Though skeptical, Mike decided to proceed and meet the man, as Emma thought it was a good idea. She also warned that the FBI was likely monitoring his activities closely, so Mike should only contact her in emergencies. Upon entering the deserted arcade, Mike found a man slumped over a table, completely drunk. Sitting beside him, Mike waited until the man finally noticed his presence. With an understanding smile, Mike revealed that he recognized him as Jason Cars. Back in Auza City, they realized that a system error had caused the barrier to deactivate for 5 seconds. Higan's quick reaction during that brief window suggested it might have been a planned move rather than a coincidence. Though they still weren't sure about the cause of the malfunction, suspicions arose that Higan had received help from someone inside Auza City. The younger members of the group didn't care about the details as long as they could still rely on Higan. However, Yamaji advised sticking to the original plan, as launching a random attack would be reckless. In response, the younger members proposed an alternative strategy, letting Higan enter the city unchallenged. With all their forces present, any secret techniques Higan possessed would be useless if he was overwhelmed before he could use them. Some opposed the idea due to potential collateral damage in Auza, but Joseph was eager to witness an intense battle and was willing to take responsibility for the destruction, as they had authorization. Dilly suggested allowing Higan into the testing chamber. Meanwhile, Higan hid in the tunnels as he received a message from his contact, informing him that the executives had agreed to let him enter the city peacefully. However, they planned to ambush him with their best ninjas, so Higan shouldn't be fooled, or he'd be in danger. The voice advised him to move at 1900 during the parade, which would serve as a distraction. Switching to Mike and Jason, Mike asked if Jason was trying to blackmail him by threatening to involve him with Auza. Mike explained that he only needed help with his investigation, and if Jason cooperated, he wouldn't bother him again. However, Jason was more concerned about how Mike had found his location. If Mike could gather intel on this place, it was only a matter of time before Auza did too. Walking around the room, Mike noticed an old game placed in the center. Strangely, it wasn't the game that caught his attention but what lay beneath it. He politely asked Jason to move it, eager to uncover the secret hidden underneath. In Auza city, the festival had just begun, and Higan started moving to enter the city. All eyes were on him as the organization's leaders awaited his arrival. As he navigated the sewers, he found himself blocked by a squad of ninjas. Meanwhile, Mike managed to enter Jason's secret room, which housed a carefully prepared server setup for his hacking operations. Sitting in his chair, Jason began explaining his plan to destroy Auza after the mistreatment he had endured. Officially, he had resigned voluntarily, but in reality, the company had relentlessly harassed him until he had no choice but to quit. Though Mike sympathized with Jason's frustration, his behavior suggested he might have been fired due to his personality. However, the fact that he had devised an elaborate revenge scheme against Auza demonstrated his exceptional skills. Jason was almost certain Auza was involved in shady dealings, but unfortunately, no one believed his suspicions. Determined to expose the truth, he took it upon himself to gather evidence against them and make it public. Perhaps people doubted him because he seemed a bit eccentric. But Mike, who had first-hand experience with Auza's illegal activities, trusted Jason's claims. He shared Jason's determination to bring Auza down and asked if Jason could hack their servers. Initially hesitant due to Auza's robust security measures, Jason worried about being traced if he infiltrated their systems. Still, Mike assured him he'd stay safe. In a thrilling sequence, Higan fought bravely against the ninja squad, skillfully using explosives for cover and swiftly cutting down enemies with incredible agility. He even leapt over a group of ninjas and cleverly used one as a human shield. Stuffing his mouth with more explosives, he vanished into the darkness before the bombs detonated. Jason used his computer skills to try accessing Auza's servers but unfortunately couldn't take them all down. Mike reassured him that they only needed to extract information. Once Jason gained access, they found research reports from the technical department's servers, but not the illegal data they sought. They kept searching until they stumbled upon the system's source code, which proved useless. Jason tried other avenues, but despite his best efforts, his access was repeatedly denied. Finally, he gave up on the classified files and checked an internal server for redundant data. Luckily, he found a folder named Bound, containing a list of aliases for undercover operatives placed in organizations worldwide. However, Mike noticed something alarming: Emma's name was on the list. Before they could process this revelation, alarms blared as Auza detected their hacking attempt and blocked Jason's access. Jason's security system also alerted him to armed mercenaries closing in. As the soldiers stormed the server room, weapons ready, Mike and Jason took cover behind a table. In a clever move, Mike activated a gaming machine, distracting the mercenaries. Seizing the opportunity, they sprinted to Mike's car and sped off before the mercenaries could shoot. The ease with which they'd been found suggested the FBI might have tipped off Auza, prompting the mercenary deployment to eliminate Jason and Mike. Meanwhile, Higan faced Auza's mercenaries. Unlike Mike, Higan was a formidable opponent. When smoke canisters were thrown at him, the results were unseen, but it was safe to assume the three mercenaries were no longer a threat. Higan had taken them down with well-aimed spikes to their throats. As Higan dealt with the mercenaries, Mike and Jason desperately fled their pursuers, fearing for their lives. Mike tried making a call while Jason panicked about their compromised hideout. Emma didn't answer, but they had a more pressing issue: the mercenaries were closing in. Gunfire riddled their car, but Jason couldn't speed up as the vehicle was badly damaged. In a bold move, Mike hung out the window and returned fire. Spotting an oncoming truck, Jason devised a brilliant plan to nearly collide with it, causing the truck to smash into the mercenaries' cars. One mercenary vehicle was destroyed, but another kept chasing. Thinking fast, Mike ordered Jason to slow down and fall behind the remaining car. As Jason complied, Mike took aim and expertly shot the mercenary in the head with his first bullet. Hihowever, their celebration was short-lived. They still had to deal with the driver. Mike fired through the window, causing the car to lose control and crash. Back with Higan, he approached two security guards who had just witnessed him wiping out an entire squad. Realizing they weren't paid enough for this, they wisely fled. Higan entered the elevator to the top floor, reminiscing about his family and the reason for his actions. Arriving in a vast chamber, he found himself surrounded by a bald, tech-suited man clearly overcompensating for something and others impressed by his progress. But this was where his journey ended. Joseph watched events unfold from his home gym, while Yamaji observed from a helicopter circling the testing center. When Higan spotted Yamaji, he charged, only to be intercepted by a ninja. Though nearly crushed, he dodged at the last second and countered with a kick. Unfortunately, the armor was too strong, and he was thrown into the air and struck by Big D. The battle raged on, so Higan relied on his secret art to conceal himself. Expecting an attack, the enemies were surprised when he instead hurled bombs at the windows and used a grappling hook to pursue Yamaji. But as he reached the top, his line was shot, sending him plummeting. Spotlights now fixed on him, Higan took a moment to think of his family before accepting his likely death. Yet, if he was going down, he wouldn't go quietly. He prepared to use his special technique again, even knowing it would kill him. Plunging needles into his arm, he was suddenly struck by Dilly and sent flying. They prepared to attack again, but Higan turned the tables mid-fight, stabbing one in the head, though the armor prevented fatal damage. To obscure their vision, he threw another smoke grenade, moving so fast they couldn't track him. Relentlessly, he stabbed at them, desperately seeking a weak point in their armor. But it seemed impenetrable. Determined, Higan readied another secret technique, only to be impaled by a barrage of spikes. From then on, it was all downhill for Higan. He endured brutal kicks, tossed around like a soccer ball, until he was nearly powerless. Just as all seemed lost, a glimmer of hope appeared. Zai arrived on the scene. Though Higan weakly resisted, he lacked the strength to do more than throw feeble punches. Zai slammed him to the ground, declaring it was time to end things. Raising his sword, Zai prepared to decapitate Higan. Resigned to his fate, Higan no longer fought back. But just before the fatal strike, a pink-armored ninja appeared, saving him at the last moment. No one could believe the shocking turn of events. Just as the others were about to intervene to stop him from aiding Higan, he activated the EMP device he had planted earlier, disabling their suits. Swiftly, he grabbed Higan and leapt off the roof's edge, simultaneously throwing a bomb toward Zai to prevent pursuit. Meanwhile, on Mike's side, we witnessed Jason's heroic efforts to get him to safety after he was shot. The severity of his injuries remained uncertain. As for Higan, he was barely conscious and acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. Even if he managed to survive thanks to this mysterious ninja, Zai and the others reached the edge and witnessed yet another shocking act from their teammate. However, the small bald man didn't care about the pink-haired ninja's assistance to Higan. It simply meant there were now two targets to chase. The media had begun covering the situation, claiming the explosions from the previous night were merely accidental. Nevertheless, operatives in the field received a coded message warning them of betrayal by one of their ninjas in the ongoing pursuit of Higan. Yamaji wanted everyone to ensure neither the pink-haired ninja nor Higan escaped to Auza city. Some time later, Higan awoke inside a capsule. Before he could move, the female ninja from earlier advised him to take time to recover. Despite the advantage of nanomachine technology, she understood Higan must be curious about why she saved him. Everything began to make sense when she removed her mask, revealing herself as Emma. She expressed regret for deceiving Higan about her identity and admitted the face he had seen wasn't her real one. Higan asked if she had been ordered to approach him, and she confirmed his suspicions. She revealed that the clan leader had assigned her a special mission related to Higan's death and resurrection through a secret technique. Her task was to uncover the truth behind this technique and determine whether Higan could revive himself indefinitely. Secret techniques were typically reserved for combat situations, so she had merely wanted to observe him up close under the guise of Emma. However, she dropped another bombshell. She was also the mysterious voice who had helped Higan infiltrate Auza city. When Higan asked if Mike was also a ninja, she denied it, explaining that Mike was just an ordinary civilian. Higan couldn't comprehend why Emma was willing to follow the organization's orders while secretly plotting against them. She explained that she had her own goals in all this but couldn't achieve them alone. Additionally, she warned that if Higan faced the lieutenants again, he would surely meet his end. Their combat suits were too powerful to confront, as she had learned firsthand that her techniques were ineffective against them. Yet, all hope wasn't lost. She could level the playing field by using their own technology against them. Meanwhile, at headquarters, Yamaji received word that one of their experimental combat suits had gone missing. It seemed the traitor had planned ahead and stolen it while rescuing Higan. Still, Yamaji remained confident they could handle Higan, even with his new suit. Meanwhile, all agents conducted a thorough search of the area while pursuing the fugitives. Emma worked tirelessly, typing on her computer to customize a special Gusoku suit for Higan. This gear was designed to seamlessly integrate various ninja techniques, combining 600 years of ninja expertise with Auza's cutting-edge technology. Interestingly, Emma had also been part of the development team for these suits, giving her deep insight into their capabilities. She only needed a few final touches to ensure Higan could harness its full potential. However, time was of the essence. They were racing against the clock, knowing the organization might find them first, putting their lives in grave danger. Elsewhere, Mike woke up in a comfortable bed beside a panicked Jason, who scolded him for failing to provide the promised protection. Still recovering from his gunshot wound, Mike merely rolled over in bed, feeling the lingering effects. Jason revealed he had been unconscious for 10 full days. Jason had managed to arrange for one of his doctor friends to treat Mike's injuries, but it came at a steep cost to Mike's wallet. Fortunately, they were currently staying in a luxurious beach house that didn't belong to Jason, and the owner wouldn't be back anytime soon, so they were relatively safe hiding there for now. Mike realized that if they had been found and attacked so quickly, someone must have been tracking him even before he left the city. This also suggested they were getting closer to uncovering something Auza wanted to keep hidden. Emma continued working to complete the combat suit but lacked the necessary power source. The air reactors, which usually functioned as power sources, were all still at Auza headquarters. Returning there without a suit would be extremely dangerous, almost a death sentence. This left Emma with only one other option. Meanwhile, Higan reminisced about a past moment he had shared with his wife, drawing inspiration from something she had said back then. At headquarters, operatives had finished searching all zones except one. They noticed that power consumption in that particular zone was 10 times higher than usual, indicating heavy equipment must be operating there. This led them to believe they had narrowed down the traitor's location. Big D volunteered to handle the situation, considering it an interesting challenge. Emma had just finished installing the armor plating on the suit, but much work remained. The enhanced Gusoku armor, known as Kamui, was a completely new design built from scratch. Its goal was to achieve the highest conceivable level of combat performance. Unlike other suits, Kamui operated differently. It required a direct neural link to the user's brain. This allowed it to instantly respond to the user's mental commands, resulting in reaction times far surpassing other suits. The suit's strength and speed scaled based on the intensity of the user's visualization. However, for this to work, the suit had to be placed in a deep sleep state. In this state, the user wouldn't wake even if stabbed through the heart again. Emma was determined to make it very clear to Higan, if he died again, he wouldn't come back. She had first-hand knowledge of this because she was the one who had given Higan the ability to revive. Showing him a mask, she revealed she had been present during the initial attack on his family. Using her unique technique, she had managed to freeze Higan's cells by striking specific pathways, allowing him to survive a fatal heart wound. However, this technique could only be used once. Those pathways would be permanently sealed afterward. Upon learning this, Higan was consumed by rage, demanding to know why Emma hadn't saved his wife and son as well. He would have gladly sacrificed himself to ensure their survival. Emma remained silent, choosing instead to activate a neural link that rendered Higan unconscious. Suddenly, she received an alert indicating their hideout had been breached. A glance at the security cameras revealed that while the intruders were numerous, several ninjas were heading her way. When Big D found a door along the path, he decided to use a laser tool to cut through it. However, upon breaking in, he was shocked to discover a room filled with explosives Emma had planted as a decoy. Emma was relieved they had fallen into her trap, buying her more time to complete Higan's synchronization. However, her relief was short-lived. The small bald man had successfully tracked her down. The small bald man questioned Emma's method of tracking him, and despite his diminutive stature, his mind was sharp. He reasoned that, given the rarity of their presence in the city, they must either be dead or constantly on the move. Knowing they couldn't be dead, he decided to monitor every vehicle in the city. Since Emma had been hiding, only one vehicle had remained in constant motion. Higan's suit synchronization was still at 10%, so Emma had to find a way to stall the small bald man until Higan was ready. In a desperate attempt to save Higan from the impending explosion, she dashed toward her computer at lightning speed and activated a program that caused the truck they were in to overturn. This clever move bought her enough time to don her own pink combat suit. With determination, she stepped out of the truck to confront the small bald man. The small bald man, brimming with anticipation, was thrilled to finally have an opponent wearing a similar suit to fight. He quickly grabbed one of his attachments, ready to engage in battle. Meanwhile, Mike tried contacting Emma, but she didn't answer for obvious reasons. Mike told Jason their next move was to track down everyone on the list. However, Jason struggled to see how he was supposed to accomplish this with his identity exposed. Going home was no longer an option, and without access to his computer, he felt powerless, unable to hack anything. Mike wasn't particularly tech-savvy, so he couldn't help much. Emma, on the other hand, was highly capable with computers. But Mike knew exactly where to find a high-quality computer. Back in Auza City, the conflict between Emma and the small bald man escalated. Emma seemed to be at a disadvantage, but she still had a few tricks left. She used a virtual keyboard to hack into Auza's systems and take control of machinery. Emma then launched an attack using trucks and drones against the small bald man, mocking him for failing to meet ninja standards. The small bald man didn't deny the accusation, because it was true. In fact, he had arrived at their location without informing the organization. Emma continued criticizing him, but he only enjoyed the fight more because of it. He leapt into the air, ready to land on top of her, but just before impact, Emma did something to disrupt his vision, causing him to miss. As he got back up, he suddenly saw multiple Emmas, realizing she must have taken control of his suit's optical sensors. Determined to find the real Emma, he began running, but many of the ones he encountered turned out to be illusions. Amidst the confusion, the real Emma slipped behind him and penetrated his suit. He managed to break free and attempted to strike her, but Emma skillfully dodged and blended back into the crowd of illusions. Though overwhelmed, the small bald man still grinned as a timer on his display counted down. Taking action, he slammed his fist into the ground using a pulsar device with fire to eliminate all of Emma's clones, leaving only the real one. As the timer hit 0, charging stations emerged from the ground. But when Emma tried to reach one, the small bald man threw a bomb, destroying the stations while he himself recharged. This left Emma's suit completely drained of power, placing her entirely at the small bald man's mercy. He began leisurely beating her, but deep down, Emma still held on, hoping Higan would awaken soon. Suddenly, a recording Emma had made began playing in the truck, explaining she had prepared it in case she failed. She revealed that Mari had saved her in the past, and they had remained in secret contact. Even on the night of Mary's death, Emma had tried to save them, but it was too late for Mari and Higan's son. Still, she saw an opportunity to save Higan. She expressed regret for being unable to save his family but said she wanted to fulfill Mary's wish for Higan to keep living. As Higan listened, his emotions surged, increasing his synchronization rate with the suit. This caused a power outage, catching the attention of a nearby child. Higan emerged from the truck in his new suit, ready to exact his revenge at last.
That's my own ninja philosophy. Hot as ice.
The council had obtained footage of Higan on the streets and observed everything that transpired. The small, bald man was thrilled with Higan's new appearance and eagerly confronted him. However, as he moved into attack, Higan caught his arm and kicked him into a nearby building. Slowly approaching while drawing his sword to finish him off, Higan was caught off guard when the small, bald man used his breath as a sneak attack. Though Higan dodged by leaping into the air, the small, bald man quickly pursued. The two engaged in a fierce battle as they fell to the ground, with the small, bald man thoroughly enjoying every moment. He launched heat-seeking missiles at Higan, forcing him to flee to evade them. Remembering Emma's advice about the suit, Higan focused his mind to enhance its capabilities, growing stronger with each vivid mental image. Applying this strategy, Higan moved at incredible speed, effortlessly dodging all the missiles and leaving the small, bald man bewildered as he struggled to keep up. Once he finally located Higan, the small, bald man unleashed a massive fire cannon to catch him off guard. However, with the enhanced suit, Higan charged through the flames and drove his sword into the small, bald man, dragging him through several buildings. He finally pinned him against a bus, with two swords piercing his chest with unwavering force. The small, bald man's time was running out, evident from the copious amounts of blood he coughed up. Yet, a smile adorned his face as he acknowledged his helplessness against Higan in this battle. Still, he had no regrets, finding immense joy in the fight they had just shared. Witnessing the true prowess of a ninja exhilarated him, and he decided to end it all with a massive explosion. Pulling Higan close, he triggered a self-destruct sequence in his suit. However, Higan remained unharmed, firmly gripping the small, bald man's entire body. Make no mistake, Higan wanted the small, bald man dead, but he intended to make it excruciatingly painful and tortuous. Higan then discarded the small, bald man's head at Auza's headquarters, leading Dilly to interpret it as a warning of the fate awaiting the others. Joseph was deeply impressed by how skillfully Higan handled the prototype suit on his first try. He was so awestruck that he couldn't resist the urge to obtain operational data for himself. Joseph wondered if it was possible to negotiate with Higan and arrange a ceasefire. However, Dilly doubted it would end well, as Higan seemed determined to ensure everyone suffered the same fate as the small, bald man. Meanwhile, Yamaji rose from his seat and declared that he would accelerate their plans. He believed the most crucial thing was achieving their grand objective. Elsewhere, in another hideout, Higan and Emma discussed their situation after removing their suits. Emma reassured Higan that the organization's lieutenants wouldn't make any moves for a while. Wearing the Gusoku equipment granted them the highest strength within the organization, so Higan's act of eliminating one of their best would force them to reconsider their next steps. Meanwhile, Zai met with Yamaji. Given the current circumstances, Yamaji decided he would no longer prevent Zai from fighting Higan. Zai now had full freedom to do whatever he deemed necessary to bring Higan down. Higan had been staring at Emma for a while, prompting her to ask him to stop and inquire if he had a question. However, Emma explained that she had a policy against dating married men or those with children, even if they were deceased. Curious, Higan asked about the relationship between Emma and Mari when Mari was still alive. Emma explained that Mari was the savior she needed to guide her to her current position. Especially when she was just starting as a ninja. During an undercover mission to assassinate a target, Emma let her guard down and found a knife at her throat. Fortunately, the one holding the knife turned out to be Mari, her mentor for the mission. At the time, Higan, Zai, and Mari were known as the top 3 individuals in the organization. Many believed one of them would eventually rise to power and inherit the organization. In their downtime, Mari and Emma were chatting when Mari noticed that Emma always wore a mask, no matter where they were. Curiosity overtook Mari, and she asked why Emma never removed it. Though it was a sensitive topic, Emma decided to share her past. As a child, she was involved in a horrific accident that left her face disfigured and gruesome to look at. Her parents couldn't bear to see her and abandoned her at a hospital, never returning. Emma was later taken in by the organization and introduced to one of its leaders. She was told she was ugly and that there was no way to change her appearance, but she was offered the chance to become someone else and live as a ninja within the organization. Emma mastered the art of disguise, becoming an expert at transforming into anyone she desired. Intrigued, Mari asked if Emma would be comfortable showing her real face. Though hesitant, Emma agreed and let Mari remove her mask. They grew incredibly close during their time in the organization, and Emma learned much about Mari's life, including the fact that she had grown up with Zai and Higan. Mari clearly cared deeply for them, which worried Emma because emotional attachments could cloud a ninja's judgment. That night, Mari took Emma for a walk and explained in detail her secret art, a technique that could make it seem as though someone had died by placing their body in suspended animation. Emma was honored that Mari trusted her enough to share this secret, but at the same time, such techniques were never to be disclosed. So why had Mari revealed it? Mari simply thought it might be useful for Emma to know, and that was reason enough for her. Reflecting on those times, Emma could confidently say they were the happiest years of her life, but it all ended abruptly around the time the ninja ways began spreading to the outside world. Emma found herself at a training facility meant to teach outsiders how to fight like ninjas. Many strongly opposed this, as the ninja arts weren't something to be easily taught to outsiders. They only sought weapons and assassination techniques, disregarding the code of honor at the heart of being a ninja. It remained a mystery why Yamaji made such a decision, but it caused significant unrest within the organization. In their next conversation, Emma expressed her concerns to Mari about the organization's future if things continued this way. She hoped Mari would step forward and become the new leader. However, Mari cut her off and shared her own confession. She was pregnant and believed she no longer had a place in the organization for breaking the code by falling in love. She planned to go into hiding with Higan, as they were willing to leave the organization to raise their child together. Though Higan initially doubted his parenting abilities, having been a ninja all his life, he knew that with Mari by his side, they could face any challenge. The organization's situation worsened when Yamaji revealed his intent to move operations outside Japan. He warned that anyone opposing him would be branded a traitor and dealt with mercilessly, leaving no room for questions. Yet, other leaders within the organization had their own concerns. They believed the organization was founded to protect Japan, so abandoning the country would be treason. They were determined to challenge him and not let him succeed without resistance. Two eager leaders confronted him immediately, but the leader at the back noticed Yamaji's unnerving calmness in the face of the ninja organization's leadership. He tried to warn the two to hold back, but it was too late, they had already launched their attack. Then, they witnessed why Yamaji was so confident. He transformed into a Darth Vader-like figure, using his power to choke them and suspend them midair for all to see. Afterward, he drew his sword and effortlessly sliced their bodies in half. To add insult, he proceeded to stomp on their faces despite their deaths. This disrespect nearly incited a rebellion among the ninjas, but Yamaji had taken precautions. Swords were held to their necks, yet the people were displeased. This meant abandoning the true ninja way. Yamaji declared himself the embodiment of the ninja, ensuring that as long as he lived, the ninja way would endure through him. The choice given was to accept this or face death without complaint. Instead, the remaining true ninjas chose to leave the organization rather than forsake their way, even if it meant bearing the shame of exile. Mari later met with the rebellion's leader and offered her assistance. She had developed technology capable of altering one's appearance to any face in the world, believing it would help protect fleeing ninjas. On her way home, Mari realized she was being followed, and to her surprise, it was Emma. Emma revealed she had received a special mission from a leader who had died by Yamaji's hand, to assess whether Mari was fit to lead the organization. If deemed unworthy, such as by violating the ninja code, Emma was to eliminate her. With the mission giver dead, Mari questioned why Emma couldn't let it go, but Emma was determined to honor the man's final wish. She urged Mari to abandon her child and return to the ninja life. The moment those words left Emma's mouth, Mary's demeanor shifted. The situation escalated into a physical confrontation, and Mari quickly realized Emma was far more skilled than she had let on. Though Emma saw Mari as a mother figure, they fought once more, culminating in Emma holding a knife to Mary's throat. Mari admitted defeat and wondered if Emma intended to hurt her now. Yet, Emma was uncertain. All she had ever wanted was to live as a ninja. Unfortunately, the organization had changed drastically, and fleeing to hide forever seemed like a weak choice. If both options before her were bad, she decided to take matters into her own hands. In a desperate move, she attempted to stab herself in the stomach, but at the last moment, Mari caught the blade. She revealed to Emma that she had never truly understood the meaning of family until now, thanks to this moment. In the same way, she considered Emma part of her family and wanted her to keep living. After reconciling, Mari asked Emma about her future plans. Emma replied that she would remain in the organization for now, closely monitoring their activities. She had learned much and now understood what Yamaji was planning.
このまま組織に残ろうと思います。するものが必要でしょうから。それがきっと